So Dr. Manohar Singh is actually the engineering officer at CPRI Bangalore. He received B in the Government Engineering College Jammu and MTech in Electrical Engineering from in Power System Engineering from IIT Roorkee. He has taken his PhD degree from IIT Delhi. Currently he is working with the CPRI Bangalore and his research interest include the distribution power system protection, application of artificial intelligence and smart grid applications. So I, the coordinator of this program, welcome Manohar sir to this program on behalf of the Electrical Engineering Department NIT Patna and Atal Academy of AICTE. So welcome sir. Now we can start the session.
Thank you, Dr. Amrish Mishra, for introducing me to the audience. Really, it's my pleasure to speak in this faculty online faculty development program on simulation techniques of power electronics converters. Uh, Good afternoon to yeah, still it's a good morning. Good morning to one and all. As I am here speaking from Bangalore. So if in between my that communication is lost during my presentation, I request organizer kindly reach me on my cell phone. So, as the title allotted to me, it is on the grid operational challenges with increasing power electronic interface generations. So, actually, there are three parts in this presentation. One is the grid operational challenges. So, presently, we are operating the grid where I have the dominance of conventional generations. Means when I say the conventional generations in my presentation, it means the generation which we are getting from the traditional powerhouses, where I have the synchronous machine into operation. So whether it's a hydropower plant in the Himalayan region, or I have the thermal fired power plant in the central India and the western India, or any nuclear power plant in the that western side or southern side, whatever. So I have the synchronous machine there which generates the power. So this is the presently bulk generation in the grid, and how we operate the power in the network. Network, when I say, it is the transmission infrastructure which consists of in majority 765 kV lines and the 400 kV lines of length maybe 500 meter 400 of sorry 400 kilometer or 500 kilometer of that much order. So this is the grid. So presently, what are the operational practices that I wish to share initially? And once we will replace the conventional generation with the new type of generations where I have very rich power electronic interface, whether it's a solar generations or it is a wind-based generation. In these are the two promising renewables which are coming in the grid. So in both the cases, I have a very rich power electronic interface between the grid and the that generating units. So once I have that type of generations, typically in a some reasonable share, if the share is very low, like 10% or 20%, I may not expect those all operational challenges which I am going to discuss in this presentation. But if the share is suitable, and what is the suitable amount, that also we'll discuss. Definitely I will encounter some issues which can create problem for the operators. So this is the theme of my this presentation. And just I kept a one slide where I can see what type of grid we are expecting in the future. See this if in this slide you will see there are the two that pictures I have given. One is a present grid, another is a future grid. So in the present grid, you will see, as I told, majority of power we are generating from the these thermal power plants, and those I have shown there. And then I have the typical load what we have today in the country. If I cite what type of load we have, it is a majority type of the load is there. Lighting load, industrial load is there, and typically in the industrial load, I have the induction motor that predominantly. Then I have the lighting load, then I have some agricultural load where once again I have a motor. So this is the type of loading profile, and generation, as I told, it is mostly coming from the concentrated powerhouses. But in the future, what I am expecting, yeah, once again, in the present grid, as I told, I have the transmission infrastructure, typically of length, which I stated just 1 minute ago. But when I go to the future grid, what changing I am expecting? So in majority, I am expecting a lot of changes in the generation side. So generation, definitely, as I told, we are going to replace by the renewable based generating power plants, where we're expecting a lot of power electronic interface. That's the one issue. Second, coming to the load side, here also we are expecting a lot of new incoming loads. It is not that we are going to replace. I request other participants kindly mute themselves so that any disturbance can be avoided. Some noise I am getting. Kindly mute your mics. Hello,
Yes, sir.
I'm getting some noise. Somebody is speaking actually.
Muhammad is
Can you mute them all?
just I will remove them now.
You mute them. So at the end, you can unmute them when they have any query.
Yes, sir. Now is it okay?
Yeah, thank you. No, no, still I'm getting. Still I'm getting. Yeah, now it's gone. Yeah, thank you. So in the future grid, as I told, one is generation we are going to replace, other is uh, whatever the load we have today, definitely those load will be there in the future also. But on top of that, we are expecting some new load profiles are also. So the new load profile is expected from like electric vehicles. That's one of the emerging load, and some other power electronic interface load is also coming nowadays. So what I mean to say, definitely there will be very rich interface of the power electronic devices at the generation side as well as on the load side. But in between, I have the transmission, that infrastructure. There, still, we are very much convinced that in the coming future of around next 20, 30, or 40 year, or you can say maybe up to 50 year, by 2050, we are going to use the same transmission infrastructure. So it is not that we will replace this AC type of transmission system with some DC transmission system, or we are trying to migrate from that EHV system to some medium voltage, or you can say some lesser voltage. No, that may not be case. Still, we will continue with this EHV AC transmission system. So we require this due to many other reasons. So that is not the discussion today I have. So what I mean to say, so one side I have the generations, other side I have the loads. And typically, there is a very large distance between the generation and the load, and lines are very long. So operator role is always there. So grid operator role will be there. So what he has to control when he is operating the grid, those parameters, what today he is doing, he will be continue to do those things in the next 20 years or 30 years. It is there. If his role is not there, then what I am going to discuss, those things may not be that much important what I expect. But since his role will be there very much, so definitely he will be he's going to encounter a lot of these issues. So it is there. So keeping in all those things, some basic idea regarding the grid operation I will discuss. And then what are the main drivers for the variable renewable energy generations, why we are going that towards the renewables. There are two key issues. You may be already aware because some other presenters might have spoken on them, but I will not take much time. Just I will give my view for 2 to 3 minutes. Then what are the trends of the global renewable energy integrations that we will explore it. It is not that we are here only integrating. This is happening across the world, and other countries already they have taken a good lead over us also, and in some cases we are following them, of course. And still I should not say we are totally follower, and we are the somewhere leader also in that way. So means we are with the world trend whatever we are doing. And then what are the technical integration strategy. It is not only the policymakers are defining the policies, just keep on integrating just to cut the greenhouse or any other issues. No, there are some integration strategy. So with what strategies are adopted across the globes, I will discuss few things on that. And then what are the emerging grid operational challenges. So this is a very crucial part of my presentation, where possible operational challenges are there, where the grid operator has to think and to devise a solution how to mitigate all those things. And then few planning and the operational practices for the RE integration I will discuss. So it is not only that presently these issues are not there and grid operator has no clue how to manage them. There are already few planning or operational practices across the globe where they are trying to manage this renewable in the grid. I will discuss few things there. And then towards the end of my presentation, I will give some specific information regarding that 170 gigawatt of renewable integration in the Indian grid. A case study has been carried out by that NREL US. I will give the findings of those that study for these audience for their interest. At the end, since I'm giving this talk to a NIT, that research institute, so some academic research institute, so some emerging research topics where your student can work, I will also give some inputs on that. Yeah. So as I told regarding the grid operation, just you see this diagram. Presently, how we are operating the grid. So you people are in the Patna. So Patna comes under the eastern region. So any power plant or any load dispatch, this substations, 220 kV substations near to your Patna, so that will be controlled from your eastern load dispatch center. The head office of the eastern load dispatch center is in the Kolkata. Okay, and of course, if it's a 220 kV substations, that will be under the Bihar Transmission Company. Okay, if it is any 1000 NTPC generating station, that is a central generation utility that will be controlled from the that regional load dispatch center. What I mean to say, if it is any central utility which lies in the Bihar, that will be controlled from the regional load dispatch center. If it is a state utility, Bihar Generation Company or Bihar Transmission Company, so their generations or their substations are controlled from the Patna load dispatch centers. So in this way, the whole country has a one national load dispatch center. Their office is in the Delhi, this, and they exchange the information with the regional load dispatch center. And you are under here, where eastern load is here, eastern load dispatch center, and eastern load dispatch center coordinates with the state load dispatch center. So he will coordinate with the Bihar, he will coordinate with the West Bengal, he will coordinate with the Chhattisgarh or any other state which comes in there. I am not fully aware how many states are under that eastern region. So whatever, I think Odisha is also under the eastern region. So he will coordinate with the state load dispatch center just for the scheduling of their generation power as well as their lines. So this is the role. Now, as an operator, why he is coordinating? What he wants? He wants the two things. In the grid, all time he has to monitor the two parameters. One is the frequency, second is the voltage. So frequency is dependent on the net active power in the grid. So what's the meaning of net? You are generating some power and you are consuming some active power. So how much net power which remains in the grid, if that balance is perfect, generation minus loss minus load is equal to 0, it means the net power is 0. So there will be no acceleration or the deacceleration in the grid, and the frequency will remain flat. It will remain the 50 hertz. If that is the case, the grid operator is the happiest person. He can simply sleep at its that load dispatch center. But that is not the case, because it's very much difficult to maintain this active generations minus active load equal to 0, because load is continuously changed. You can't estimate load so accurately so that you can generate corresponding active power. No, it's very difficult to estimate the load. Although we have the lot of load estimation techniques, but it's very difficult to attain accuracy of 1% below. Okay, so due to that inaccuracy in the load forecasting, what happens, it is very difficult to match the generation all time. So some fluctuations in the frequencies all time expected. Now what is the band in which the frequency fluctuations are expected? Typically, as per the Indian grid code, if the frequency, this is a profiling I shown here. Okay, so in this band, if it remains in this band, no action is required. Automatically machines are equipped with the governor. They have the governors. Okay, if the frequency goes below, it means he has to raise the generation correspondingly to match the load. If the frequency goes on upside, accordingly generation will be ramped down. There's an automatic governor action in the powerhouses, and that is why, as per that CRC guidelines, any powerhouse operating more than 200 MVA must be equipped with the governor action. Any hydropower plant more than 10 MVA must be equipped with the governor action. They must participate in the grid frequency response. That's the criteria. So one, I told the frequency, and second is the voltage. Voltage is the function of the reactive power. So what happens at your powerhouses? You are generating the active power and you are generating the reactive power. So active power is consumed by the system as well as in the load center. Reactive power is required to facilitate the flow of the active power on the system. Since your whole systems, right from the generation to the distribution, has a lot of inductance in the path, whether those are the substation transformers, whether those are the this transmission lines, all have in inductance in majority. What happens? They will consume some reactive power. Who will supply that reactive power? It is the powerhouses. See, once again, I will repeat the sentence. It is a very high value when I will go on the renewable side. It is the generator which gives you the active power also. So that active power is spread across the transmission infrastructure just to manage the voltage control. But in the distribution, generally you connect the capacitor wherever it is needed. Suppose in the Patna, at a particular area, voltage is very low. Distribution company maybe connect some capacitor there to compensate it locally. But in the transmission side, you will never connect any capacitors. So transmission side requirement is meeting from the power generating plants. They will operate their power plant close to the that capability curve, so that you have the maximum reactive power generation from then. So if that is the case, the amount of the reactive power produced is equal to the amount of the reactive power consumed by the network. So your voltage will be flat. So your voltage will remain around 1 per unit. Okay. So what's the meaning of 1 per unit at 765 kV? So since of course it will be very difficult to manage the voltage in 1 per unit, but some tolerance is allowed. That tolerance is typically, as per the Indian electricity grid code, is 5% in the transmission system. You will see at 400 kV you have to manage the voltage between 420 and 380, which is a 5%. But if voltage goes outside this 5%, what will happen? You may encounter with the voltage instability problem. Okay. If your frequency goes outside this window, what will happen? You may encounter with the frequency instability problem. And this is the role of the network operator to ensure frequency as well as the voltage to be maintained within that window. If frequency is going down than 49 hertz, what he will do? One option, he will increase the generation. It is not so easy to increase the generation. So he will go for the load curtailment. He will try to cut the load so that corresponding load can be removed, so he can once again regain the balance between the active generation and the active load, so that the frequency he can maintain. This is the role of the grid operator. There are many other things what now presently grid operators are doing, but these two fundamental things he has to do it. Now how it becomes more complicated if I replace the generation by the power electronic interface generation. That is the crux what I told you. Of course I will come later. Then why we are replacing these our classical synchronous machines by the this VRE generations? Why? There are the two fundamental factors. One is of course the this carbon emissions and the temperature change. And of course, if this is a one classic that characteristic which I have taken from that World Energy, that one forum is there. I have given the references also at the bottom. Just I will take, yeah, it's not here. Source, yeah, you can read it here. New energy, that change, actually that word is France. It's a Bloomberg New Energy. Yeah, it's a reference there. So what happens if we continue to fire our powerhouses with the present rate to meet our future energy demand from the fossil? So we are following this curve, this red curve. So by the end of 21st century, the average temperature of Earth will increase by this much degree. If this much will be the temperature by the end of the century, this planet will be unfit to live. So that is why the world leaders arrived on a common platform, and then they derived a common consensus where they planned to cut the greenhouse emission by this rate so that they can regulate the earth temperature within the 2 degree. Okay, that is only possible if we migrate our future energy demand to the renewable based, because the thermal powerhouses are the one of the major source of the carbon dioxide emission, in addition to the transport sector. It is not only these powerhouses are culprits, there are many others, but they are the one of the key. And then transport sector is also, that is why you will see that every government is framing the policy to migrate the transport sector on the electric vehicle. So this is one thing. But this thing was already there from the last 20 years. It's not that all of a sudden the last 5-6 years happened and we have started moving towards the renewable. It was already there. There's another thing. The technology for the PV and the wind has fully matured, and there's a very huge deployment across the globe. And due to those two factors, there's a drastic cut down in the cost of the per unit power generation from the PV as well as the wind system. And presently, you will be very happy to hear that the per unit cost generation from the renewable is more or less as compared to that competitive to the this thermal power plants, even though sometimes it is cheaper. It is cheaper, and due to this factor, what happens? Good number of thermal power plant in country, they are operating at derated capacity because they are not able to sell their power. So they are operating their power plant at only at 40% capacity, 50% at the minimum, that technical minimum. Below that, they can't operate it. So they are forced to operate their thermal power plant at that rating. So since the cost of generation of electricity from these resources is cheaper and moreover they are eco-friendly, that's the reason. But apart from that, there's another some that criteria which are favoring the renewable. See, it's a retirement and the aging of the conventional power plants. But this is not valid in each and every country, especially in India, where our power that load new that electric load is increasing by 5 to 7% in that range. So in order to make up that much additional generations, we can't totally manage from the renewables. So we are slightly dependent on the thermal power plant. So we will continue with the thermal, but new powerhouses we are not expecting beyond 2026. Whatever the powerhouses which are at the different stage of the construction and the commissionings, those we have to commission before 2026. And there's no further this non-renewable plan of the power generation beyond 2026. But it doesn't mean after 26 we are not generating power from the this coal-fired power plants. Yeah, whatever the power plants today we have, they will continue for their next 20 or 25 years. And but other portions we will get from the renewable side. But that is not the case in case of US or some other developed countries, since their power plants are already 30 or 40-year old. They are already aged out. Now they can't make the new fossil-fired power plants, so they are trying to make their retiring generation also from the renewables. And but in our case, we are not trying to meet our retiring generation from the renewables. We are trying to address our new generation from the renewables partially. But in case of other country, I told, so they are trying to make, since their load is not increasing, their load growth is not that much because those are the developed countries, but they are trying to meet their retiring generation from the renewable based power plants. So more or less, you may be aware. So that's why I will not much speak on this area. And this is a policy related issue, but this is a very much clear cut clear cut opinion that renewable will be there in the grid and their share will increase with a fast rate. Definitely the day will come where the renewable share may be more than 50%, maybe 70%. And I will not hesitate to say it may be 100%. So it may be there. So it is there. Yeah. So this is another slide I kept taken from once again US Department of Energy, and you can here see. So it is up to 26. So more or less what they are trying to, they are meeting their retiring generation from the wind-based system, and then partially from the solar. Wind, actually, they are more focusing on the wind, whether it's the US or the European system, because they are placed in that part of the globe where the wind speed is harnessable. But we are not placed in that part of globe where the wind potential is harnessable. Like we have a very much limited wind potential, whether it's in the western Ghat of the country or some partial eastern Ghat of the country. But in the central portion of the country, we don't have much wind. But we have a very good solar insolation. Here, typically the solar insolation hour is around 10 to 11 hours. So that's why the government of India has framed the policy more power generations from the solar rather than the wind, due to this this techno commercial availability of the resource. That is a fundamental reason behind it. And of course, China is China is not following us, but more or less China has also framed its renewable policy like we have. So their solar insolation, and moreover, they have a good amount of that abundant land which is required for the PV generations. So of course, now they are the number one in the power generation from the renewable, especially from the solar side. Lot of the deployment of the solar panels has happened in the China. It is there. And when this all things will happen, what we are expecting, this type of the grid exactly we will see. Here you will see a lot of distributed type of generations from the solar, from the PV, from wind, and we may have very few power generation coming from the conventional power plants. I have the electric vehicle as a new load, then the energy storage will be there. This is also new to the grid. These two are the new to the distribution system. Presently I don't have any storage interface with the grid, but in the future, since my generation, why I require that, I will come up. Definitely if I have the renewables where I don't have much reliability on that generations, in order to make the system reliability, definitely I will require the battery storage. Once again, I have the power electronic interface here. Okay, so the power electronic interface will be that on the distribution side will be increasing as more renewable you will see. So becoming very complex, since more and more decentralized type of the things are there, definitely you will require more sophisticated control techniques, which will become which will make the system very complex to control. It is there. And then what are the global renewable integration trends? It is there. It is not only the potential has been estimated. Essentially, I kept this slightly older, 2016. This slide is there. Yeah, 15-16 data. You will see around for few countries like the Denmark or the Scotland, though they are smaller systems. In the Germany, you can say also Germany is a reasonably good system, where the renewable penetration is already about more than 50%. In some country, it is more than 100%. What's the meaning of that? Actually, that tells those countries have sufficient renewable potential, and they are exporting the renewable power to their neighboring country. Especially that is in the Nordic region. It is happening there. And actually, this is the instantaneous penetration. It is not the install capacity. You should not get confused with, yeah, they have that much install capacity. No, it is not the install capacity. It is the instantaneous penetration. Means at a particular moment of time, they are producing that much percentage of renewable energy, energy from the renewable generations divided by the load. So it's the meaning of that. It doesn't mean that your conventional generation is absent there. Those plants may be ramped down to technical minima, but they are still in the system. If they are in the system, they will support the system stability. They will meet the system operational requirement, though they are not dispatching their active power. So this scenario is like that. Once they are outside, they are absent from the systems. Whatever the things which I am going to discuss, definitely those will be clearly visible. It is there. And then moving towards ultra, it's not the small size. Typically, if you see that these wind machines are 2 megawatt, 3 megawatt, 2.5 megawatt type of size is coming. And the solar nowadays, of course, we have the power plants of big size. I can cite one example here in the Karnataka. We have a one solar power plant of 2500 MVA. 2500 MVA is a very ultra thermal power plant, very big power plant. Okay, so those type of power plants are coming, and when these type of power plants will come to the systems, definitely one day we will reach easily, we will cross the total 50% install capacity. So that is why, see, this is the US system. Okay, Department of Energy, by 2050 they are planning 35% wind and 19% solar. So by that time it will be 54% of total installed capacity. So what this slide tells, this tells these resources has the promising potential to replace the future energy demand of the big system in the future. It is not only small, okay, small island, okay, small some country they can meet. No, they can replace the future energy demand from the big system like the US system. Okay, that much potential is there, and they have the target of around how much that time? I think it's a 54% by next 30 years. So more or less, our target is also same, not so aggressive, I feel, but it is also in the same line. Yeah. So Indian install capacity as a June 20. This is only for your sake of information. You may be aware. We have total roughly 371 gigawatt install capacity total, and out of that, wind is some this renewable is somewhere 88 gigawatt, and this share is roughly 19 to 20%. And if I see that in that, the wind is here. The wind is how much? You can see 37 gigawatt, and the solar is 35 gigawatt. Earlier wind was more, solar was lagging. Now solar has also picked here, more or less they're equally, but I'm quite sure in the next 2 year definitely wind will be not much progressing as compared to the solar, since the target is how much? 172. 87 already we have reached that 172 by 2022. So definitely the remaining the portion is coming from the solar side. So solar is going to integrate with a very rapid rate in the country. It is there. And of course that you will see the small hydro is also classified under the renewable sector, but big hydros are not classified under the renewable as per the Indian renewable definitions, because small hydro will not attract any that geological or this dam type of structure changes there, so it is a type of the renewable system can be taken. Then what are the see what I told up to this stage? I have told there is a convincing potential with these resources where they can integrate it with the system. There's a no doubt. Now then, what is the integration strategy? It is not that somewhere you will get some renewable and you can integrate whether your system is able to accommodate the changes which are coming from that source or not. That we have to see. So actually there are four aspects. One is the grid integration. That's a technical aspect, whether the grid can accommodate the changes which are expecting from these resources. Another is the policymakers. Okay, since the policymaker will decide, as I told, 170 gigawatt, that is decided by the policymaker. That is based upon the that international requirement, international that climate change policy compliances. So this is a policy requirement. They define the policy, and the system operator or any people, technical people, they have to get in compliance with the policymaker. It is not that we can say, no, no, we can't accommodate. No, we can't accommodate. Our system will not permit. It will create many changes. So technical that people have to look for the solutions where they can address any technical problem which is coming. So the policymaker decide the policy. It is the role of the people who work in the system to frame the operational practice in that way so that they can accommodate if any changes is coming there. Then there's a regulator also. It is not like that if something happens or some technical issues are there is a regulator. So means accordingly the regulations are made, or wherever it is required it is relaxed also, based upon the technical things. I will give some example later on also how the regulator plays the role in that case. And then the system operator, the people who operate the systems. These are the few issues. And if I see, first is the generation side. Planning for a high, yeah, it's mouse. Planning for a high renewable future, grid integration study we have to carry out, and the cost of the managing system with high variable renewable, and the myths and the misconception regarding this we have to explore at the planning stage. Suppose for the Bihar government frames a policy of how much total load maybe in the Bihar somewhere 10,000 megawatt of that order. I'm just guessing. So UP is somewhere 15,000 megawatt. So Bihar, if I make the proportion, is somewhere 10 to 11,000 megawatt. It should be there. If the Bihar government is framing a policy of the renewable of around 10% and 15%, that means 1,500 that gigawatt, the megawatt they're expecting in their system. So they have to do a planning for that. It is not like that arbitrarily they can manage it. So for that they have to carry out the grid integration studies. Okay, at the planning stage, whether operational cost, the system cost, there's a cost benefit analysis. If some there are the misconception regarding the renewables, whether it may create problem, or there are many things I will discuss. So those things we have to see at this stage of the planning. So it's a very essential. Then comes the renewable energy integration generation. So but this issue has been well addressed nowadays. See what happens initially, you might be familiar that if some solar is there, typically there are few kilowatts, you know, some household like the 10 kilowatt, 5 kilowatt. So whether that technology has the capability to scale up with the international targets, like that if what I quoted the example of 1500 gigawatt for the megawatt for the Bihar, whether that solar has that much capability to scale up that level, there is no doubt in it. since we have already power plant of that size coming in the country. So there's no problem on this issue. So far as generation side, I don't see renewable generation technology is now well established and well matured. Then the network side, what I told. So whatever the grid network we have, whether that network can accommodate that much power, since this is not the power which is coming from the conventional power plant, this is a highly intermittent type of power. So whether we require the network expansion or we have to upgrade the network to handle the new VRE. So this is another issue we have to see. And once these issues are there, then comes the operational issue. When though you have the plan the things accordingly, you have the generation technology, and you have the corresponding network to evacuate the power. But in operation, what are the issues expected? How you will handle them? So there are the different techniques, whether the balance area coordination or the storage may come to your assistance, or you can involve the demand response. These are the few things where the now this research is moving on, and moreover they are in the implementation stage also. And then wherever the grid code revision is required, or there may be the bidirectional flow of the power once you will install these resources on the distribution side. You know? Otherwise you have the unidirectional flow of power typically, because your distribution system is radial. Your power comes from the only transmission to the distribution. But if you're planning some these generation on the distribution side, then definitely there's a bidirectional flow of power. So these are the operational issues. So these are the broad area what I told. When you integrate the renewable in the systems, those you have to take carefully. Yes. And there's another way of exploring the things. One is that when your penetration is low, like Indian system, you know, so presently as I told 19 or 20%, in that case if you integrate, it doesn't creates much operational issue in the grid. So that is why these studies show that the integrating generation penetration up to 20 or 35% renewable is technically feasible in the regional grids without added transmission and the operational challenge. So whatever issue they are creating, those can be managed. Those are not much visible because the majority contribution is still coming from the big powerhouses, fossil powerhouses. So they are managing their ill effects. In Eastern and the Western interconnection in the US, operational changes such as the balancing area cooperation, sub-hourly scheduling, and advanced forecasting, use of the demand response. So if any intermittency which is coming from these renewable in that limit, that can be managed with the help of balancing area approach. So crudely, what's the balancing area approach? Suppose I have the two entity like the Bihar transmission company and the UP transmission company. At some time, suppose the Bihar has the sufficient generation of the renewable, and it is more than your demand. So what happens? Where you will store that generations? You have to store, otherwise you have to exchange it. You can give to the UP if their requirement is like that. Okay, that is the balancing area. You can utilize the multiple utility to balance the ill effect of the renewable in the system. That is there in the eastern, the western region of the US. This cited example. And second, the sub or scheduling. Typically, what the schedule we do, है ना? So that schedule is that we can decrease the timeline of the scheduling, है ना? So nowadays we typically in the Indian system what we have adopted, that's 1 day forehead. Okay, for tomorrow how much power we require at particular time, we are making the arrangement today. So that's 1 day ahead rather than 1 day ahead, because if the 1 day ahead, definitely you have the more error in the estimation of the generation as well as estimation of the load. In the conventional systems, you are not much bothered on the generation estimation. Why? Because you have a very much stable generation. Only you are bothered on the load estimation because load is changing. Okay, but what happens anyhow? Just I will cite an example. Suppose for tomorrow, 12th of February, the national load dispatch operator at Delhi, he will call the information definitely how they work. This is the example I am going to cite. Definitely for tomorrow at 12, what now? What's the time? Yeah, 12 1 p.m. Let us take that. Tomorrow 1 p.m. What is the total power requirement in the country? This is the role of the operator. He will call the information from the regional load dispatch center and the state load dispatch center, and the data will go to him. Suppose that figure is to 180 gigawatt. This is the somewhere I think the load in the country 180 gigawatt. Fine. So 180 gigawatt As I told, the information go from the east 20 kV substation, from 400 kV station, from 765 kV station. So how they will tell? They will tell the information based upon their historic experience. What was the yesterday? You know, what was the load on the same day, same time last year? So historic information they will collect, and based upon the figure will be compiled at the National Load Dispatch Center level. It is 180 gigawatt. Fine. Then what he will do? Then there is a bidding, that open access bidding of the power happens, and the bid is won by the different generators. Those may be central utilities like the NTPC, NHPC, or the state utilities like Bihar Generation Company, or private utility like that Reliance or Tata Power or any other. I am not naming for them, but any other it can be, what I am remembering. So they will win the bid according to their availability of resource. Okay, since they know how much coal reserve they have, typically the inventory is kept for 1 week. They know if today I am participating in the bid, it means I have the coal. If a hydro plant is participating in the bid, it means he has that much water in its dam. If there's no water, definitely he will not bid. Fine. So he is certain that at tomorrow at 1 p.m., suppose the NTPC, I will take only example of three players, player A, player B, and player C. Suppose the player A, which is a thermal power plant, 150% bid. Player B, which is a hydro power plant, 125% bid. Player C, which is a nuclear power plant, 125% bid. But tomorrow at 1 p.m., when the load is expected at 180 gigawatt, okay, so they are prepared for 180 gigawatt. They will pump 180 gigawatt, excluding the last whatever. So this assumption. So 180 gigawatt generation, 180 gigawatt load. So balance perfect, frequency stable. But that's not the case. Since there will be error in the load estimation. Suppose that error is only 2%. Okay, 2% is a very aggressive accuracy I took. So 1% is how much? 18 gigawatt, 2% हो गया 36 gigawatt, right? 1.8. No, it may be more. Somewhere 5% you can take it. So that may be 18 का half कितना हो गया? 9 gigawatt. So 9 gigawatt is that loss of accuracy. Now, if that means you are deficit of 9 gigawatt tomorrow, so it was not 180, you have to add that 2% on, so it is a 182, whatever, 189 gigawatt. From where that 9 gigawatt will come up now? If generator will not supply the 9 gigawatt, your frequency will fall it. But no, as per the regulations, they must be equipped with the governors. As I told, that they have to involve in the primary frequency response. So governor has the mechanism. Once if the frequency falls, he will try to open its guide vein or the valve to pump more that fuel and generate the more power. It is there. So in that way, it is balanced properly. This was the example. Now, why I cited this example? Suppose the NTPC, what share I told, which is 50%, just to replace by the renewable, whether it's a solar or the wind. Do you think at tomorrow at that 1 p.m. that machine has that feature, okay, where you can just increase the opening and more wind will come up and you will make up the generations? No, because it is a very difficult to estimate the wind speed in the advance. It's a very I don't know, wind speed may increase or not decrease. It's like the load forecasting. It will be very difficult to forecast the input for the renewable generation. Load though you can forecast, but so far as the wind speed or the solar insolation level, it's a very difficult. Then what's the solution? Why I'm going for the 1 day ahead? I should go for the 1 minute ahead. 1 minute, definitely the loss in the accuracy will be very low, but it's a very difficult to manage the things in 1 minute, definitely. So that's why whether hourly or the sub hourly can be there. And what the example which I cited, that's economic load dispatch window, that is valid for only 15 minutes. So after 15 minutes, the load may jump to 185 gigawatt. Whole exercise will be revised. Okay, so that window also can be made narrow from 15 minutes to 5 minutes. Okay, so narrower the time, lesser the error in the forecasting. So this is the one technique where it can be implemented if operator is facing more problem in managing the grid. This is one thing. Advanced advanced forecasting, so means better forecasting technique you can apply. Then use of the demand response. Here we can involve our customer also. Okay, So depending, suppose I don't have any other way, I can tell the customer, okay, when I have the deficit generation, that time you don't use your load. Okay. So this can be done in the future. So presently, see, we are not forced to reduce our load or increase the load due to the grid requirement. No, it is not there. But if operator has no other way, he can involve the customer also in that way. That's a demand response. So it's a separate topic, but here just I cited the example. This is one area. Sorry. In the phase two, what is the meaning of the phase two? Yeah. So in phase two, what is happening when you are going to integrate more than that 20 or 35%, where the technically it may create some issue with the grid. So how you will manage? Suppose you don't have much load increasing the load, but you are forced to generate more renewable powers due to that international this policymaker compliances. Then what you will do? Then you have to ramp down your thermal generations, cycling and the ramping thermal power plant to accommodate the variability in the system. This also you can do. If much variations are coming in the from the renewable systems, you can offset that variability with the help of ramps, the periodic cyclic ramping of the thermal power plant. Okay, so this may also happen in the future, but in the present scenario in the Indian context, uh, though we have decreased the generation of the thermal power plant, okay, but cyclic ramping still it is not there. I am not sure it is not there to accommodate the wind. They are doing the cyclic ramping. Okay. And then higher penetration of the renewable on the this already explained. Okay, rather than the 15-minute interval, then we have to go for a smaller interval of 5 minutes. I can't go that below 5 minutes like that 1 minute, because then lot of information, that communication burden will be there. Lot of information you have to change, heavy traffic you have to flow. It's a very difficult to manage and all those things. Now, okay. Now next is the emerging grid planning and the operational challenges. This is the what the main technical content here. As I told, since there's a highly variancy in the generations, definitely the variability and the uncertainty. That variability and the uncertainty is daily, and moreover, it's a seasonal time variant. So you will definitely face there's a good amount of variation happening from the morning to evening in the wind speed, and it is a function of the season. There's no doubt. And how that variability can be managed. As I told, typically I have the wind turbine of 2 megawatt of that size. If I club them all together, these wind machines generally are in a form of the wind farms, where I have the 100 wind machines or the 200 wind machines. And typically they have a good amount of spread. They all are not located at one locations. You may have a one windmill here, another windmill may be 10 kilometers away from here. Means those regions are so broad. If I will club the whole power together, okay, first I will make a pool of them, then I will connect with the grid. Definitely I will try to offset the variability of each another, because what the wind speed at location A, it may not be at B. Okay, though I have not a fixed pattern, but at least I can manage the variability. That why I will show some result. Definitely this is one way, pulling together meaning. And then planning and the operational challenges. Okay, this is something regarding the planning stage. Typically what we happens whenever a new power plant comes, I will cite a very encouraging and very new example. Now government of India has identified a potential of around 700 megawatt, 7.5 gigawatt in the Ladakh region. Okay, 7.5 gigawatt is a very big power. 7500 megawatt, that is a half of Bihar demand. Okay, and there's no demand in the Ladakh. Ladakh is a very low demand area because population is low, there's no industry. And where that power will be utilized, definitely that power will be brought to somewhere in the northern regions, in the NCR regions, or wherever there's a demand, even though that may go up to western region where the heavy industry is there. We require a transmission corridor from Ladakh to Delhi, such a tough hilly terrain. Definitely we have to create the transmission lines. Suppose if that line fails, okay, due to some reason some fault happens on that line, then there's a loss of that much generation in the grid. So we will look for the redundancy in that transmission system, n-1 contingency, but that is only for that a power plant, okay, where you are dispatching the power for a limited time interval, maybe only daytime, only for 4 hours in the day. Nighttime you are not utilizing the assets. So it is a very crucial how to make the planning for those type of systems where that I should say the economics is also a very prime concern. Okay, it is not in other case, this is not the case. Okay, if there's a one line, if you are not routing the power from this one powerhouse, you can route the powerhouse of the that power from the other powerhouses through the same line. Okay, then I can make the two line. If that line is out, I can route the power from the line B to get n minus 1 contingency reliability. But in that case, what you will do you make the two lines? Okay, and cost involvement is very huge in that case. And moreover, the utilization factor of that power plant is only 40% or maybe 30%. Winter may not get, or some other time you may not get the solar installation. So what I mean to say, the planning is as well as the operational issues are very important in that case to gain a n minus 1 contingency. But in the present, it is not n minus 1, we are going for the n minus 2 contingency also. So how to match these things? Then third is the economic load dispatch. This already more or less I discussed. And then balance power generation, the demand continuously. This I will leave. More or less I give the information. Four also I will leave. Okay. I will come to the fifth. Typically, yeah. Power system stability is a very essential, and presently we are very comfortable. If any fault happens to your substation, suppose any 220 kV station outside your NIT Patna, if you give any fault, what will happen? Don't clear the fault, just give fault and come back. So definitely I wish to hear the answer, but since online you can't give me, so I have to act that role also. You may say something will happen and a system will burn or some transformer will burn, and yes, that will happen later on, there's no doubt. But it is not so instantaneous. You just give a fault for some time. Suppose if there is a one powerhouse is also close, hardly 50 km away from that substations, what will happen? Initially there will be some that I should say stress your powerhouse generating unit may face. What will happen? Its rotor angle will try to deviate from its predefined positions slowly by some degree. Okay, if you will not clear the fault after certain time, that machine will go out of step. But during the time when the fault has happened, machine was in the system, that time I say critical fault clearance time, है ना? So I have to clear the fault before that. If I clear the fault before that, machine will recover automatically. But still that time may be 500 milliseconds, and the protection is there which clear the fault within the 500 milliseconds. That's not a problem. Why am I making the example? So for 500 millisecond, that machine has the capability to take the stress, to take the mechanical stress. Okay, that is due to heavy inertia of that machines. That is only possible. Okay, if I replace that synchronous machine with the PV systems, then there's no inertia. Those are the static pieces. There's no inertia. Those synchronous machines give me the classical feature of very high inertia, which provides a feature to the grid to absorb any stress whenever happens due to the sudden loss of the load, sudden loss of the generations, or some fault in the system. Because protection will take some time to clear the fault. Before that, your system inertia is there, which maintains the system stable. But once I have not those type of the generating units, definitely system stability will also be a big concern. That I told from the rotor angle point of view. Now, coming to the another aspect. But at least I am today still I'm very comfortable for the voltage control in the system, because your generator gives me a flat voltage there. The whole grid voltage is controlled by the generators. Whatever load you place in the system, it will cause very slight change in the loading. Okay, but more or less your voltage remains controlled by the powerhouses. Okay, since their voltage remains stable. Now what happens? Why voltage remains stable? Because their reactive power generation remains stable, because that input to the powerhouse remains stable. It's a defined input. You can define, you can generate the predefined amount of the active and reactive power from the power plants. Due to that reason, your voltage remains stable. If your voltage is falling, accordingly you will manage it. Fine, you have the exciter there. You just accordingly excite to manage the voltage. Anyhow, that is there. Now I will quote the example of this power electronic interface generators. What will happen? Let us take it three generators. One, A, B, and C. All are the solar in the nature. One is located 100 kilometer away from B, and C is located another 100 kilometer from B. All are in a line. So distance between A and C is 200 kilometer. Okay, I hope you understood how I place them. So 200 kilometers is a very wide distance. At a morning at 11 a.m., there may be good insolation at location A. Location B may not have the same, and location C may not have the same. This is assumption I took. It means there will be better voltage profiling at location A. But my assumption, there is a no synchronous machine in the system. So in that case, your B and C, they will follow A. Okay. A is the grid forming. B and C are the grid following. Okay. At other time at 3 p.m., B has a better now input. Okay. Now grid is the grid forming. A and C are the following. In other way, you go C is the grid forming. A and B are the following. What I mean to say, there will be a continuous hunt to form the grid among three. So this may encounter a voltage instability issue. And typically, we will see this problem in the powerhouses from rotor angle stability point of view. You may be aware if you know that inter-area oscillations, inter-area between one machine and another machine, they try to hunt it. But those are issues; those can be sorted out with some different PSS and techniques are there. But so far as their voltage remains controlled, whether it's a 1 unit, 2 unit, 3, at the terminal, all three will generate the same amount of voltage because the design is according. There's no circulating anything. If there's any imbalance in the voltage, that creates a problem to the powerhouse. But this issue you may encounter in case of this power electronic interface converter due to the input. Another issue, reactive to power management. As I told, operator has to manage the voltage. So only thing how he can manage, he has to get the reactive power support from the powerhouse. And it is the mandate of the powerhouse to supply the reactive power up to the transmission system, whatever the requirement comes. And remaining distribution system will be managed locally. Fine. Now, if you replace those powerhouses by the power electronic interface generations, then in that case, your solar will generate only active power. Wind will generate only active power. Not only they require reactive power for their own support, they have a power electronic interface. They themselves require the reactive power. From where you will get the system reactive power? That is a big concern. And now presently what is happening, since we have the thermal power plant also, and we are not utilizing their active power fully, but we are utilizing their reactive potential fully. Okay, just to manage the reactive power in the system. But unfortunately, in the tariff is like that they are paid for only active power. They are not paid for the reactive power. But once they are operating close to their rated capacity, they will not bother for the reactive power because they are selling their reactive power. But unfortunately, they are not able to sell their active power, but they are forced to generate the reactive power. So they filed one case in the that regulator central that CERC. Okay, now we are expecting that revision in the power generation tariff where they will be compensated for the reactive power generations. Okay, but after some times when they will be phased out, okay, those will be not in the system. In that case, definitely we will require some arrangement for the reactive power support in the system. That is there. So another area is the design of the power system protections. Of course, I already started with the stability. When any fault happens, we will try to clear the fault as early as possible, at least by critical fault clearance time. We have a very foolproof protection systems, and that protection system is highly reliable. There's no doubt whether it is a current-based protection or a impedance-based protection. It works so effectively as per the expectation of a protection engineer, but it will work only once there's a change in the current or impedance. Because whatever the scheme I named, those are the impedance protections. More relay, I hope you understand the impedance protection and the current based protection. And typically, since the source is the synchronous machine, if you give any fault, definitely the fault current is very high, voltage is low, current is high, V by I is low, Z is low. So what I mean to say, whenever any fault happens, the source is the synchronous machine. Synchronous machine is a very high kinetic energy, and that kinetic energy gives very high short circuit current. That is why there's a drastic change in the current as well as the impedance, and that change can easily detected by the relays what today we have. Now question comes for the wind-based system. Okay, in case of the wind, you don't have a single machines. You have small machine to club together, and they are located at different locations. And if you just understand what type of short circuit current you are expecting from the wind-based machine, in the synchronous machine, you get a very stable short circuit current. If it has a per unit current is 1 kiloampere, a machine of 20% rating, that percentage impedance 1 by 0.2, that's 5 kiloampere. 5 kiloampere, very stable short circuit you will get. But in case of wind, you will not get a very stable short circuit current. Why? Since if you go for the modeling of this induction motor, this DFIG generators, which is used in the windmill, you will see the rotor resistance is a function of the wind speed. That slip is there. And typically the value of slip is around 40%. It is not the 5% for induction motor. It's very high. High is kept so that you can accommodate the broader wind profiling. So when the rotor that slip is around 40%, it makes a suitable change in the that total impedance of that machine. So due to which, if the wind speed is varying in a broad spectrum, you will get a variable short circuit, not a stable short circuit. And all these machines are clubbed together at the pooling stations. Now there you will get a highly noise type of short circuit current. What I mean to say, you will not get a stable short circuit current. And that unstable short circuit current makes very difficult for the relaying, which are based upon the current and the impedance. Relay may get confused in some cases to decide whether it is a short circuit or not. This problem is more complicated in case of solar. In case of, though in the wind you got some short circuit, that is a highly intermediate and variant, that is not a stable. But in case of solar, everything is static. You will not get any short circuit. Your load current and short circuit currents are same. Then whatever the relay, what I made, I told, very reliable, everything perfect. I am not sure whether it will sense it's a fault or not fault. So that is the one area where the protection engineers are working for the solutions for the protection of those substations. Asset utilization, of course, you can club with here. Okay, just leave it. And this is a power quality. Just I will make some comment on it. Of course, power quality is a issue. Presently, it is also there. There's no doubt. And this issue is going more complicated in the future. Presently, what happens? You have the load. Mostly, I have the industrial load, as I told, the motor is there. And then now power electronic interface type of load is also increasing day by day. And these, they inject harmonics in the systems. And you are getting a pollution from the distribution side in majority. So far as the source is concerned, source is clean, like the Ganga which is coming from the that Himalayan. It's a clean. There is not much contamination. It gets contaminated in that UP and downwards, but source is clean. Okay, and if I make analogy, what is the meaning of clean? You have the synchronous machine. Synchronous machine gives a perfect sinusoidal power. Okay, okay, that design is like that. If you are going to replace your source by the this power electronic interface generation, in that case you will get the harmonics itself from the generations. So definitely you have the harmonics from the source itself, load itself. Definitely there will be good amount of harmonic in the systems that will hamper the that efficiency of the system. So you may have more losses, you may have artificial type of loading of the systems. So all those issues which comes due to the high harmonics will be more visible in case of high penetration of the renewables. It may affect the customer devices or many other means. I will not go to discuss being a power engineer, so it's a power quality. More people, I think definitely other speaker I might have spoken on the power quality. So my point is that you are going to replace your generations. Definitely you will get a harmonics from the source itself, and your problem will be more complicated. As a system engineer, I feel definitely there will be more losses in the systems, and the artificial loading will be there. This is there. And since everything is more and more decentralized is happening, it is not on the distribution generation. Smaller unit will come. Definitely we have to control them. In order to control, we have to rely on the communication and better communication, and it will attack the cyber physical system. Okay, so it is opening a new type of threats. That's why this new type of threats we are expecting. Cyber security in the power system is going to be a one issue where in the future people are working to handle it, since we are exposing our power system to the cyber world. It is there. This, yeah, a few planning and the operational issues are there. This I will slightly skip since I have some very exciting result for you. This I told here, and if you club, just what the statement I declare, I will try to defend that statement by this one. Okay, the potential need for increased operational reserve. Typically, yeah, if you have the more variability coming from the generations, how you can offset? One is that you can store some power in the battery, or you can take some operational reserve from the other powerhouses to offset the changes which is coming from the renewables. So that can be managed if you aggregate them together. So if I have the 15 turbine together, you see the variability is there. If I have the 200 turbines clubbed together, then the variability is lesser. So clubbing together aggregation of the wind and the solar resources definitely decrease the variability and reduce the need of the additional reserve. Otherwise, opinion is like that. If I have the 100% renewables, definitely I will require at least 50% storage. No, 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 it is not like that. Okay, so it may be only 5%, 10%. Okay, that was the myth earlier. And the new forecasting technique, better the forecasting technique, lesser the reserve you will require. Okay, so rather than investing on the more and more storage, which is a very costly affair, invest on the forecasting technique. Okay, if you increase the accuracy of forecasting by at least 2%, definitely you will get a very high saving on the storage. So it is, since we are trying to compare with the existing forecasting, how much storage you require. No, you try to forecast, use the modern techniques or what artificial intelligence is, invest on the forecasting so that you require less storage. That was a myth also. And then 1 to 2 hours ahead, this already discussed. Okay, if that technique is utilized, at least it will give a good relief. This just leave it. This also will skip. It's a 2 hour presentation. This also will leave. This just slide what regarding the protection I kept it earlier. Do I explain? For synchronous power based generation, this is the short circuit current very high. But a solar, see, it is hardly pre-fault and the fault has hardly any change. If you are expecting relay to respond against this change, I am not sure it will respond or not. But definitely it will respond against this change. So those are things here. Okay, yeah. So I have around that now 15 minutes. So I will speak for 7 to 8 minutes, then I will keep remaining 5 to 7 minutes for any queries and discussions. Now, 170 gigawatt integration in the Indian national grid, a case study has been carried out by the NREL. Means what were their major observations and the findings that I am going to share. This is not done by us. This is NREL US. How do wind and the solar contribute to the total generations? How does net load will change? How does operations of the conventional fleet will change? Conventional fleet means conventional generation. Okay. How do hydro that will be affected? How does VRE affect exports on the inter-regional lines? As I told you, are in the eastern regions. You have the connection with the southern regions and the northern regions. How the flow on those lines will change, and then what curtailment of RE is there? Whether it is possible, whatever identified RE potential you can integrate in the grid, or you have to curtail under certain conditions. Okay, and how does the system will manage forecasting errors? So these are the few points around which that study has been carried out. Their major observation, what I told here, the power system balancing with 100 gigawatt of solar and the 60 gigawatt of wind is achievable at 15-minute operational time scale with the minimum RE curtailment. So this was the observation. 160 gigawatt together, okay, can be managed with the present 15-minute operational time scale without much RE curtailment. There is a around 2% RE curtailment under certain contingency, but it is possible what they told. And the 160 gigawatt of solar and the wind, roughly it will be 22%, as I cited, of the total installed capacity. And then now presently already we are 19%. It doesn't mean we are only increasing the solar. We are increasing the conventional. So that time by 2022 it will be 22% of total installed capacity. And then what he's telling here, the power systems as planned for the 2020 is able to manage the added variability of wind up solar. So what I mean to say, whatever the we have already given them our planned power system by the next 5 years. So that network is capable to handle the variability of the solar and the wind. So system is there. New fast ramping infrastructures such as natural gas turbine, it not necessarily. Otherwise, you require those type of the generations where you can immediately ramp up and ramp down to offset the variability of this generation. This is not required up to this penetration. If you go beyond one that 70, maybe 200 gigawatt or 250, definitely you will require that flexible generation in the system. So since main concern was the this carbon emission, what it tells on that, in a system with 160 gigawatt of wind and solar, coal plant on an average operate only at half of their capacity. Yes. So coal plant will be forced to roughly around 50%, suggesting the potential role for the new tariff structure that moves. So this is a requirement. If a power plant is operating at 50% of rated capacity, then how it will pay back? Okay, so definitely new tariff structure that is required, away from focusing on the energy delivery instead of the compensate plant for the performance that achieve the grid flexibility. It is not only for the energy unit he is selling, so he must be paid for the grid performance, but the flexibility and the ancillary services he is offering to the grid. So this is there. And then lowering minimum operational level of the plant from the 60 to 40 is the biggest driver to reduce the RE curtailment. There's some noises there. I request to be muted.
Mandeep, where are you?
Sir, in library, sir.
Then why you are turning on your mic?
Yeah, thank you, sir. So another thing what he told, lowering, if you try to minimize the operating level of coal plants from 70 to 40% is the biggest driver, then there will be curtailment of nil. Hardly you don't have to curtail. If you are if you are not going up to 40%, then some 3 to 4% curtailment will be of renewable will be there. And it is not only, see now see opinion comes too much ramping up the thermal power plant may increase their operational cost. That feeling comes. This is also a myth. What he told, coordinating scheduling and the dispatch over a broader area is the larger driver to reduce the cost, saving of around 6,300 crore annually when optimized regionally makes it 2 to 3% annually. Okay, so if the what I told, that broader area, that coordinated control approach can be adopted in that case, rather than believing that there will be more cost on the other side. No, there will be saving in that way. It is not only the greenhouse emission cut down is there, the saving in the operational cost is also there. It is also there. Now only thing, the main observation was there, they told the power plant which are forced to operate at 40% must be compensated by the new tariff regime. This was a recommendation from them. And then coming to the how much really, because the prime concern was the that fossil this what gas carbon emission cut down. Okay, so what the to greenhouse gas emission cut down, what they told, fuel requirement for the coal and the gas fall from 20 to 30%, coal by 20% fall and the gas by 32%, and carbon emission by 21%. So this much cut will be able to cut. Okay, I think that's a great that reduction what we are expecting. And the further analysis can build up upon this basis to explore the optimal renewable resources and the interstate transmission sitting, system stability during contingency, and the influence of the total system. Okay, anyhow, this other side. So point was that there will be around the 21% on an average that emission in the carbon emission, and the fuel reduction will be also there. I think that's a big gain we are getting from the renewable in the future. And then strategy to integrate the better, this you can drop out. And based upon that, these were the few states where they identified the potential. It was the mostly the southern states and the western India. And you can see it is given the wind as well the solar also, especially the state like Karnataka, it is more than 50%. Gujarat is Rajasthan is also 50%. It is there, but they also explore to study if this renewable potential beyond 160, what will happen. So A is a wind dominated. Another scenario they studied where 100 wind, 60 solar. Even though that was more technically favorable, he told enables a higher annual RE penetration. Instead of 22%, you can penetrate up to 26%. Reduction in the carbon was additional 6% from 19 to what was there? It was 21. 21 to 6, so 28%. Then what was the problem? But our wind speed is not so stable as compared to the solar insolation. That's why the policy was towards the solar side we have claimed. Another thing, they also analyzed 250 gigawatt. This also, they told, could achieve India nationally determined contribution targets. But here was the point: 16% annual RE curtailment you have to do in the southern regions. Okay, because southern region will be already saturated by that time. Here, all time you can't extract the renewable. Under some contingency, you have to curtail the renewable potential by 16%, especially in the southern regions. And what you require here, it requires the modified operational thermal power plant flexibility. So it means definitely here too much ramping or some other type of operation of the thermal power plant is required. With the present operational practice, it may not be possible. This was the observation. As I told, some emerging research area also kept it. So first is the advanced functionality embedded in the VRE to provide our grid services for the stable grid operation. So it is not only what we expect in case of conventional generation, that voltage profiling, as well as the active power and the reactive power generations. But in this case, we are expecting something more also, like advanced multifunctionality, better communication, and the control of the harmonics and the reactive power requirement also, it is there that we are expecting. And then one is the grid codes and the standards needed to be reinforced the grid stability. There also requires a lot of work to be carried out, since managing the frequency within that point to zero point 0.5 plus minus hertz may not be required when you have the too much variability is coming from the renewable generations. So once again, I think we can relax that criteria slightly or not, means it requires once again revisions for the grid stability point of view. And then need cost effective energy storage techniques. So presently, whatever the energy storage techniques are there, those are very costly. Still, that is the one big concern. So people are working here. That's why nowadays you will see many material engineers and the power engineers are working together to find out those materials where the power can be stored at low cost. It is there. Then the improve VRE and the load forecasting. I think I already have discussed many times on that during my talk. So better you have the load forecasting and the generation forecasting techniques. Definitely, whatever the uncomfort the operator is facing from them, those can be offset. It will not only decrease operational comfort, it will also attract lesser requirement of storage and other things. And the improved communication from the measurement and data analytics to drive the grid forecast. Yeah, so better communication as well as measuring techniques are required, so that you exactly know what is happening in the grid, so that you have the better grid forecast. You know? So since it is not, grid is not operating under very stable conditions where you can no need to all time open your eyes and see what is happening. Since we are expecting too much variability from the generations, definitely grid will be highly dynamic in that case. So you have to open your eyes more times to see what is happening, so that you can forecast the thing accordingly to prevent the grid disasters. Then better grid operation adaptive algorithms. So it is linked with this point. Definitely, in order to accommodate, in order to intervene the grid far more times, you require the better adaptive type of operational practices rather than the simply relying on the voltage and the current presently what we are doing. Then the energy management control for the transmission and the distribution. Presently, more focus is on the transmission side. The visibility of the distribution is not there. So when you have the generation and the distribution also in that case, so you require more management of the distribution in addition to the transmission. And then impact of the new load on the power system operation, the planning. And new load, especially when I say, I should say only the electric vehicle. The electric vehicle load profiling is totally different than load profiling of other type of load, because this load will come all of a sudden at a particular time. There will be more peaking in the loading. You know? Suppose all you have, if all of you have the electric vehicle, definitely you will charge only at the evening. Daytime you will not charge. You require the vehicle. You know? So in the evening you will charge. So all of a sudden whole city load will come. Electric vehicle load will come on the system. So it will stress the system, how the system can be managed. So this is going to be also a big issue in the coming years. It is there. So this was there. So thank you very much. I apologize for the few slides which I have not shared. So I intentionally kept some time, at least 10 minutes, for the queries and the discussions. So that's all from my side. You can write me your queries on the chat box, or if you wish, you can speak me. Otherwise, you can pass your queries to the coordinator. He will speak me.
So thank you, Dr. Manohar. Now, if any of the participant would like to ask anything, you can raise your queries. Manohar sir, you can stop sharing your slide. It is still coming. Yes, yes. So now any of the participant would like to ask anything regarding the topic he has discussed well about it. Anyone? So some of I think queries are not there with us, so we can end the session. So Dr. Manohar, very much thank you for being